With a 20-year reputation for clean business, Matt Glynn at Code Property Group is the first choice for real estate on the Sunshine Coast and surrounding areas. I've known Matt for a very long time from a personal level and professional level, and he is an excellent real estate agent. He's professional, he holds a high level of integrity, he presents incredibly well, and has a huge amount of knowledge when it comes to the real estate industry. So if you are in the market to buy, sell, or simply get a valuation and find out more about your current property, then give Matt a call on 0404 315 066 or matt.glynn, GLYNN at codepg.com. You won't be disappointed. Welcome to another edition of the Paul's Body Engineering Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. It's taken a while for us to connect, but finally I get to chat to Tyarra Nelson. Now, Tyarra is a very accomplished bodybuilder, a very accomplished dietitian, a very accomplished nutritionist. She's got more degrees than I can count, but what she's done in the space of bodybuilding, in the space of nutrition, in the space of evidence-based coaching is really impressive. But I thought with this opportunity, I'd dive deep into her background, how she got started, where the fascination and the career path chosen around food came from. And then obviously we talk about her bodybuilding career as well and where she is planning to head in the years to come. So it's a really inspirational chat. It's a really exciting opportunity to have a chat to her. So without further ado, let's chat to Tyarra. All right, I'd like to welcome Tyarra Nelson to the podcast. How are you, Tyarra?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on the show today. I was telling you off air that I've been a fan of your podcast for many years now, and I'm quite an avid listener. So it's pretty cool to now actually be asked to come on the show myself.
Yeah, that's quite surprising to know. I guess as a host, and you obviously host your own as well, you don't tend to think about the actual listeners that are out there that are listening. But then when you get someone come up to you and say, "Oh, I listen to your podcast," it's kind of like, oh, well, that's kind of nice.
I know, right? It's the case of you record this audio, you send it out to the universe, and it'll do what it may, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You never truly know who's actually tuning in. But yeah, you always do appreciate when those people come up to you at a bodybuilding show, or you're even washing your hands in the bathroom. Or I've legitimately had people stop me on the street before and be like, I listened to your podcast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, what's your name? Please introduce yourself.
Oh, that's actually really true. Not the bathroom scenario, but most other things have happened to me as well, so I can relate. I thought it'd be a great opportunity, and obviously we spoke a little while ago about doing this, but life gets in the way. About talking about your path into dietetics, and then obviously from that bodybuilding. As a female in this space, I really find it fascinating to understand the reasons behind that, the decisions. Because I imagine it wouldn't just naturally be something that you gravitate towards, particularly once you've hit uni. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about that, your beginnings, what made you choose that path of your studies, and then obviously into bodybuilding, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, wow. Well, upon reflection, I believe that it all started off in early childhood. I think that as a kid, I was always very curious and very inquisitive when it came to food. And I just was very aware from a young age of the profound influence that certain foods had on my mood, my energy levels, my training performance, just overall how I felt in my body and my brain. And gosh, I come from a family where food is very ingrained in us. From my dad's side of the family, his mom is a chef, and also her husband, they're both my grandparents. He's actually a wildlife conservationist. So my father, he grew up in the state parks of California in the USA, and they grew up, surrounded by a lot of wildlife and obviously a lot of very nutritious food. And my dad, he then went on to study a marine biology degree, and now he's a marine biologist and also a fisheries researcher. And my mom, she actually comes from a cattle ranch in Wyoming,
Oh,
and
wow.
her mother and generations prior, they all own this cattle ranch. So growing up as a child in Canada, I was surrounded by, my family members, and everyone was very heavily invested in, exercise, and, everyone was just very keen on not just being foodies and appreciating the taste of food, but really good quality food. And I grew up with my dad. We did a lot of hunting and fishing and camping, and I was just always surrounded by nature. I was out in the woods or I was by the water. And when I'd visit my grandparents who live off this beautiful little island right off the west coast of Washington, they have this humongous garden, and I'd go into the garden with my grandma and we'd pick snow peas and we'd dig up carrots and potatoes and all of these little things. And I just loved it. I really did thrive. And growing up, I was encouraged to play basically every single sport under the sun. And I was always really curious why, when I ate certain foods, it would either positively or sometimes negatively influence my training performance or my performance on the court or my performance on the field. And I was always like asking little questions like, why is it that they give us Gatorade and oranges at halftime for a soccer game? And then in the second half, I seem to get this, second wind of energy and I have more endurance and things of that nature. Or when I was swimming, in Canada, I swam at quite a high level at a provincial level. Then when I moved here to Australia, I swam at a national level. And I was always thinking, like, the night before, if I eat a whole bunch of rice or a whole bunch of pasta, the next day I hit PBs in the pool. Like, what's with this? So I understood that something was going on, but I didn't have a full grasp and a full understanding. And even as a young kid, my parents really encouraged me to be very independent when it came to food as well. So if I was waking up every single morning to go swim, which, you had 9 training sessions per week, you got like
Wow.
Wednesday mornings off, and then you'd compete in meets on the weekend. If I wanted to have a breakfast and a lunch that day, then I had to wake up a little bit earlier and I had to make some breakfast and some lunch. And I come from a family of 6 children as well. And my sisters, while they were all still sound asleep, I was like, you know what? I'm making my own sandwiches, putting out my own juice boxes, my own carrot and celery sticks. Might as well help put them out for them as well. So I always think, like, does that now influence the coach I am today? Like, caring after other women when it comes to nutrition, because I was feeding my sisters, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I was just taught to be very independent and really look after myself. So it allowed me to obviously make a lot of those decisions, which is just fantastic. Or heck, even walking to school in Canada, like you'd be picking huckleberries along the way, or at certain times of the year, blackberries would grow, just all these amazing things. So I love food. I think it's been ingrained in me from ever since I was a young child, and just moving my body outdoors. I love the fresh air. I love being one with nature. And I think that just naturally translated as I continued to grow up as a young woman. But at the very end of high school, I did find myself in a quite a sticky scenario where unfortunately I developed quite a number of very orthorexic eating habits. I had a very poor relationship with food, a very poor relationship with my body. I think downright I was just confused about what it truly meant to be healthy.
Mm,
I really found myself in that just awful trap of being hyper focused on scale weight and thinking that very low numbers equaled, health, or that equaled success.
yeah.
I think naturally I wanted to lose a little bit of weight, and then I got very, very obsessive with it. And yeah, I wound up in some very unhealthy eating patterns and mindset habits. And I really did not like the way that I felt. And I was like, I know that nutrition has the potential to make me feel very, very good, but right now it feels as though it is ruling and it's dictating my life. And I genuinely don't feel like I'm happy. I don't feel like I'm thriving. So I wanted to take back that sense of control. And I knew the way to do that was to educate myself. So coming into the very end of high school, and you have to pick, your selected university degrees, the ones that you want to get into.
Mm.
Looking at what was on offer at the University of Queensland in St. Lucia, there was this thing called a Bachelor of Nutrition and Exercise Science. I was like, man, that sounds right up my alley. Uh, so I got into that degree, which then naturally led into a master's of dietetics as well. If you achieved a certain GPA, which
Yep.
I exceeded, I'm pretty proud of that. But I just remember even sitting in my very first lecture and just being, oh, gosh, just taught just these. Now I look back and I'm like, well, that's pretty basic stuff. But I was like, whoa, this is just fascinating. That 3-year undergraduate degree at UQ, I was so in love with university. Like those were some of the best years of my life. I was just a sponge for knowledge. And the coolest thing was is that everything that I was learning at university, I found myself in a position where I could apply that to my own life and I could enhance my own life. I just thought it was so neat how I could directly take what I was learning in these lectures and what I was being quizzed on in exams, and that would then influence what I chose to buy. And then that would then influence what I chose to buy at the fruit and vegetable market or the grocery store, essentially what I chose to eat.
Yep.
And even then getting involved in the gym as well. Like prior to that very first year of university, I was doing a lot of long distance running throughout high school, on top of playing a lot of other sports. And then in that first year of uni, I was part of the track team. I was running a lot of half marathons. But I got to that point where I was just like, if I'm honest with myself, I know that I am exercising and eating with the intention to break my body down. I was still in that mindset of trying to be just the smallest version of myself. And I was just like, enough is enough. So I actually went cold turkey on running and I joined the University of Queensland gym and I started going to the gym every single day. I lived in a share house at the time, and rather than cycling to uni and cycling down to the track to run some laps, I started cycling to the gym. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with just the way that lifting weights made me feel. I felt so empowered, and ironically enough, from a physique perspective, I was finally seeing, the visual changes that I desired all along. And I became addicted. And gosh, throughout university, at that time, I was one of actually the few females in the University of Queensland gym who was actually lifting weights. A lot of girls, they'd come to the gym, but they'd stay, in the cardio section or go into like this other little room. But I was like, no, I belong. And I made friends with so many of the guys there. I made friends with so many of the personal trainers there as well. And I was like, man, I need to keep paying my rent. At the time, I was working at the university subway, coincided with like this other restaurant up the street, just running around this Thai restaurant. But I was just like, I want a job where I feel like I belong and I want to be in a really good environment, because I'm telling you, working at Subway or in a restaurant, uh, gosh, you stay active, but it can just be unnecessarily stressful.
Mm.
So, on top of my university studies in second year, I studied my certificate 3 and 4 in fitness through the AIPT, and I became qualified personal trainer. And then I handed in my resume to the manager at the gym and basically got the job right on the spot. Just sold myself, as I was like, I'm one of the only females at this gym. I'm gonna be the only female personal trainer. Like, hey.
Makes sense.
Hire me. And yeah, I worked there for 3 years, and I loved working at the university gym so much. And that definitely helped get my foot in the door in terms of speaking to clients, actually learning what is it like to, yeah, sure, have knowledge, but then apply it to people and actually work in a real life scenario as
Mm.
well. And the neat thing was there is that once I graduated as a nutrition and exercise scientist, and then the following year and a half, I went on to study my master's of dietetics. Because I was technically a tertiary level nutritionist, I then almost created my own job at the university gym as well. Because when people sign up, they get like a free consultation with a personal trainer.
Mm.
But a lot of these people were coming to me with these goals where I was like, so what do you eat? Because I knew that what they wanted to achieve, it was going to be heavily dictated by the food,
Yeah.
rather than, them coming to the gym 3 times per week and doing some tricep pushdowns.
Yep. Yep.
And then I developed a little bit of a reputation at the gym for being that go-to girl if you had any nutrition questions. So I almost, yeah, created my own job there at the University of Queensland, where people were then like just booking me in every single time I had a shift for nutrition consultations, which was really neat. And again, it just really allowed me to have that experience with speaking to people, understanding people, tailoring plans. And this was just as like a 20 or 21-year-old girl.
Mm.
And yeah, that definitely gave me an advantage in my dietetics degree as well, which is very practical based, where you're spending like a year working in a hospital, working with patients, and also in aged care facilities, coincided with a few like lifestyle things and things of that nature. Um, but yeah, I feel like everything just naturally kind of progressed and coincided. And at that gym as well, because I'm a very competitive person and coming from, a lot of different sporting disciplines, I was no longer running. So I was like, man, well, I really want to be able to compete in something. And naturally started, learning more about this sport called bodybuilding. And I actually competed for the very first time in 2018, which
Mhm.
was right at the beginning of my Master's of Dietetics degree. So that was a full-on prep, but I was seriously just thriving because I was so busy every single day. And I'm definitely that type of person who would rather be busy rather than bored. And I had a lot of really great mentors actually at the gym. Are you aware of Alan Mayo?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Alan was actually, he studied at UQ, and then he was also coming to that gym at the time. And he coached my business partner, Jack Radford Smith, for his first prep as well. So we had Alan there, and Alan was just a phenomenal mentor to us. And during those first couple of years, I also met Haley and Damo
Hmm.
from Dynamic Body
Dynamic Labs.
Labs.
Yep.
And then I knew of Joey Cantlin in the industry as well. So gosh, all of these great people in the very early stages of my, introduction into bodybuilding. And even at that time, just getting a lot more, insight and dabbling into the podcast world. This was back in like 2017, 2018, when podcasts were not nearly booming at the point that they are now, but introduced to some of those first podcasts like the Revive Stronger podcast and
Yep.
Sigma Nutrition and Team 3DMJ. I started learning and like listening to all these things. I'm like, oh my God, there's other people out there who are just like hyper obsessed with bodybuilding too. I could not get enough of it. I questioned, why have I been listening to music all this time? There's podcasts. And even like as a treat to myself, like after I'd finished, studying for the day or looking over the certain type of research papers that I had to for my selective courses, like my treat to myself was I would do like additional searching, and I discovered people like Andrew Chappell,
Mm.
and obviously Eric Helms and the team at Mass. And I started just like doing these deep dives. And I'm like, wow, there's actually quite a bit of nutrition and training evidence-based literature out there regarding bodybuilding. But again, not near to the same extent as what it is right now.
Mm.
So I was just, again, a sponge for knowledge. And I just wanted to continuously learn more and more and more, because I just recognized just how much it just helps to develop me as a person. And gosh, I'm low key addicted to self improvement. So bodybuilding is definitely just my calling.
The universe has spoken.
Absolutely. I am unapologetically obsessed with it. I love it so much, and I fall more and more in love with the sport every single day.
What do you think that is? Is it just that the untapped knowledge in the space, that the science and research is still very limited in some capacity, or is it just the fact that there's so much to it in terms of mindset, nutrition, training, lifestyle, all these
Mm.
attributes? Is there any particular standouts in that, or is it just everything?
Oh, I definitely think it's the case of it's so multifaceted.
Mm.
There, as a bodybuilder and a physique athlete, every single thing that you do on a daily basis, every decision you make, every action you take, it has the potential to influence, who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And then, our physiques, they're just byproducts of who we are, you
Yeah.
know? Uh, but it definitely has the influence to just change the way that you feel, change the way that you think, change the way that you perform, change the way that you recover, just changes your perspective on the world. And I just love bodybuilding so much. It challenges me on a daily basis. It teaches me so much. It humbles me. It connects me with other like-minded people. I can really tap into my creativity. And again, it's just the options and the avenues to improve, they are just infinite, right? There's
Yeah.
always something that you can level up in. And
Absolutely.
the things that you eat, the ways that you move your body, like I just think it's so fascinating, just especially on a food front. And the coolest thing about food is that like food is essentially universal, right? I don't know about aliens, but I don't know, should I say global, maybe not universal. But there's few things on this planet that like everyone can relate to and everyone is reliant on for life. And food is one of those things. Every single person on this planet has to eat.
Yeah.
So everyone is also a little bit low key, kind of confused about what to eat. That's also something I think is really cool is that you can always spark up conversations as a dietitian or a nutritionist because when people find out, your domain, they're like, "Oh, so what do you think about this? What do you think about that?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone, I feel like even people who aren't self-proclaimed foodies, everyone still has questions when it comes to nutrition because
Yep.
everyone eats food.
Absolutely. It's very true. And socially it very much dictates a way of life. We go for
Mm.
coffee, we go out to dinner, we go on dates and have meals, we go to the movies. Yeah. I agree with you completely. That's a good way to look at it. It is very universal. I do like that. Yeah.
100%. And yeah, in terms of bodybuilding, again, it's cool to be your own little guinea pig in some sense and be at peace with the fact that, it's okay to trial and error different things, learn what works, maybe learn what doesn't necessarily cause you to fail, but maybe something else would be, a better option. But it's really neat to also see how the things that you eat and the ways that you choose to move your body and the ways that you care for yourself and show yourself love and compassion and self-respect you don't see them on the daily, and sometimes you don't even see them on the weekly or the monthly, but it's the case of you have to, cheesy as it sounds, trust the process,
Love
but
that saying.
also just trust that, all of those daily efforts and all of those, daily actions, they are compounding to something really great that you will see with time. You just have to just love how they make you feel on the day to day. And then with time, through that delayed gratification, you're rewarded with being like, oh, cool. Like that looks a little bit different. But again, I see it as like the physique, the aesthetics, like it's literally just a bonus, right?
Mm,
Like you genuinely love this, if you really, really love this lifestyle, then you thrive in the day to day.
yep. I completely agree. You mentioned something just going back a couple of stages to when you got that role in the gym. So you were the
Mm,
only female trainer and you were only one of the few females lifting weight. So
mm.
this was when did you say this was? Back in the mid 2010s, 2016, 17, somewhere around then?
So I started back at studying at the university in 2015,
15. Okay.
and that's when I joined the university gym as well. And then I started working there in 2016.
So even then and still to this day, there's obviously still a very strong stigma around females and lifting weight. Now,
Mm.
given that you are a bodybuilder, you lift weight, you coach in the space, what's, I guess, your position or your advice regarding, females entering the gym and strictly going to cardio when their objective is so much more than just that?
Yeah, I will always remember back when I first started working at the gym, and the consultation room was this little room like in the center of the gym. I'm not sure if you've ever been to the UQ's fitness center, but
No.
it's a three-story gym, and there's like a staircase in between.
Oh,
But
yeah.
there's this little consult room, and it had a little window. And whenever I'd be in there with a girl and we'd be talking about her goals and I'd be, writing her a program and then I was going to walk around the gym with her and show her how to do all the exercises, more often than not, like they were a little bit hesitant
Yeah.
to, get under some barbells or lift up some dumbbells or get on a machine, right? They felt a little bit intimidated and perhaps in some case a little bit insecure as if like, all these other people in the gym, they were going to have binoculars on them and just just like major casting judgments.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite things to do was I'd be like, take a moment with me, look out through this window. What do you see? You'd see a whole bunch of university boys, just lifting a whole bunch of weights. But where were they looking? They were looking in the reflection. Like gyms are surrounded by mirrors. And yes, in our defense, it's so that we can watch our form, and check our execution. But
Yeah.
let's be honest, we're all just in there checking ourselves out, right? You get a sick pump, you're like, man, I'm gonna flex this. I'm gonna take a selfie. Like I look
It's going on
awesome.
the gram.
Yeah. Oh, hey, and I'm all for it. But I try to explain to them that when you walk out onto that gym floor, I mean this in the nicest way, but no one's actually going to notice that you're there.
Mm.
All of these other people go into the gym, right? Because it's their time and they're focused on them. They're focused on their own goals, and yeah, men and women we're in there, right? Because it's a sacred time for us. And I think a lot of people can relate to this in the case of, we're not super observant when we're in the gym. Someone else might be doing something a little bit goofy or, a little bit questionable. Do we even notice half the time? And
Yeah.
even if we do, you're kind of just like, like
Yeah.
at least if you're a nice person and you observe things but you don't make assumptions or cast judgments or anything of that nature.
Mm.
So I try to explain to these girls like you're going to go out there, and you're just going to do you, and everyone else, they're just going to do them.
Mm.
So I think that would provide them with a little bit of reassurance to be like, okay, people aren't just going to be all eyes on me and just judging me and things of that nature. And it would make them feel a little bit more confident in going out there and having that courage to get on the gym floor and lifting some weights and yeah, falling in love with it too. But I think that as the industry has grown, especially social media, and I don't know if this is just my own bias because I'm like so entrenched in the bodybuilding world,
Mm.
but at least from my view, I don't feel as though that's the case anymore. I feel as though when girls see other girls lifting really heavy weights, or building these muscular physiques, they are just inspired. They're in absolute awe. And they want to see, okay, what led to that person looking that way, being able to perform that way. I think there's so many remarkable female coaches in the industry now who are just great leaders, great role models, and they really specialize in the female side of things, and
Yep.
they have a heck of a lot of female clients as well. So I think that chicks, they're doing awesome things in this space. So I think it's definitely changed from, 8 to 10 years ago and prior.
Mm.
But on the flip side too, I am always reminded that that probably is the case in my own view because I do live in this bodybuilding
Yeah.
bubble, right? So when I actually speak to my sisters, I come from a large family of six, and everyone is in a little bit of a different field. Some people study medicine, psychology, some are technicians, actors, they're musicians, everyone is doing their own thing.
Yep.
And I'm definitely the most muscular of the bunch. And even when I speak to my sisters, and they ask me questions and I tell them about, how I go about my life and, my training, nutrition protocols and things of that nature, they are still a little bit skeptical of it. And again, not casting any judgments in any
No.
sense, right? But they themselves, even though I can tell them, hey, this is how I achieve X results.
Mm.
They still choose to engage in more fitness classes, or they go for runs, or they do kind of like high rep body weight workouts, whatever it may be. But I'm just really happy that all of my sisters, they are still very active, they're still very lively, they're still very healthy. But just having discussions with them because they're not if obviously involved in bodybuilding, health, or fitness at all, it does remind me that, Okay, one, bodybuilding isn't the whole world. There's actually a big wide world out there. There's a lot of other things going on
Yeah.
and a lot of other people on this planet. There's billions. They all have a different perspective on when it comes to exercise. And they might not be super clued in with, okay, in order to look a certain way, what do you actually need to do? And realistically, for how long as
Mm.
well?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's a good segue. So, in relation to that and the bigger wide world, but also your specific lifestyle. So we see it
Mm.
on Instagram a little bit, your protein cakes and your nice cream and all these sorts of things. And that's obviously your chosen lifestyle and you live by that. But I
Hmm.
guess from an outsider looking in, it could seem very monotonous or very repetitive. Do you ever
Yeah.
get the need or the desire or anything to break away from that repetition to have a meal out or go out to dinner or just change things up a bit? Or are you really content with what's happening at the moment and where things are at?
Yeah, well, I do recognize that I am in a position where I'm a young, a healthy, a single and independent woman who I'm financially stable and I just feel as though I am in full control of my life. And I've always had the dream ever since I was a little girl to be able to architect a life for myself that I love. I seriously just adore. And when things are said, I take them very seriously. Like when people say life is meant to be enjoyed. Well, yeah, and life has the potential to be enjoyed every single day, right? When
Absolutely.
you just take full control and just responsibility for your own life and you put in the work and you take those necessary steps to just make visions come to life and make things happen for yourself. So I recognize I'm in a bit of a unique situation as well. But on the flip side too, people might look into my life and be like, wow, that's so neat, right? Like I've always dreamed of living by the water. I live by the beach and I have two border collies and I wake up every single day and I set my intentions for the day and I tell myself every single morning, like, today's going to be a really good day. And I plan out my day exactly how I want to plan it out. I want to go out to the beach and get some sun in my eyes and I want to stretch. I want to take my dogs for a walk, and I want to see them run and be all happy in the water. Or I want to practice my posing. I want to go to the fruit and vegetable shop and I want to eat these certain foods. Or on the weekends when there aren't bodybuilding shows on, again, coming back to like my upbringing or like really being one with nature and being doing a lot of hunting and fishing. Like I think it's so fun to go out to the beach and like pump some yabbies and I go fishing and I think it's just so funny how like I'm like a bikini bodybuilder who can catch her own white fish and and I come home and I barbecue them. Like I have fun with it. I love my life so, so dearly much. And I love being able to go to Riggs gym, like this gym where I call home base and I train there, 6 days a week because Joey won't let me train seven. Or
Damn you, Joey.
gosh, but even just getting on my bike in the afternoon. And I think it's a matter of perspective too. If you genuinely enjoy the lifestyle, like you need to, the way that you phrase things, the way that your attitude toward things, the way that you label things, if it's not steps, it's this is my morning walk, or this isn't cardio, this is my afternoon bike ride, right? Or it's always the case of these are the things that I want to do, I dearly desire to do, I get to do. It's never a have to or a must to.
Yep.
And like if I say something, I want to take it very seriously. Like when people say, competing is a choice, like prep is a privilege, you should thrive in every phase. So that's a very long-winded way of me saying that I've taken the necessary steps. I'm 27 years old now to get to this point in my life where I do feel like every single day is such a tremendous day. But on the flip side too, if I look back and I'm like, well, there's a few things perhaps I sacrificed that a lot of other people have in their life, like throughout uni, I studied for half a decade full time straight, and I basically lived at the gym. I've been sober now for well over 7 years. I never went out and partied, and I didn't honestly have a huge network of friends either. I like my circle is quite close knit, right? I only have like a few select friends, and it's the case of, I wasn't super duper social, and even now, I look at other people and I'm like, you have so many things that I don't have, right? And I hope that you're happy with those, right? I like you found your soulmate. You're deeply in love. You're engaged. You're married. You have this loving family, like you have a job that allows you to take 6 to 8 weeks off in a whole entire year where you don't have to touch your work and you can just be completely free. Right. So I think it's always that sort of give and take.
Yep.
But yeah, this is the life that I've personally chosen for myself. And it genuinely makes me feel my happiest because I love myself, and I respect myself, and I take really good care of myself because as a coach, I see it as my job to take care of other people, right? That's your ultimate role as a coach. Like you have a duty of care. But the only way that you're truly going to enjoy your job, have sustainability in it as well, is, if you're not booking yourself out, but rather you're actually booking yourself in and you're actually deliberately taking pockets of time during the day to clear your own head, to move your own body, to nourish your own body, right? So that when you do attend to your clients, like you can take ridiculously good care of them too. And
Yep.
you can be a role model to them as well. And also, not a hypocrite, not a fraud. Like I would never tell my clients to do anything that I wasn't willing to do myself. So I think, yeah, it's a very unique life that I live, but I love it.
There you go. I love that
I'm
answer. That's great. That's so good. And you can hear the passion in your voice too, which is, even more
it's
genuine.
it's all a choice. We
Yeah.
we all choose our own life path, and I guess this is just the chapter of my life that I'm personally in right now. But I feel like there's a hell of a lot of benefits to it. But naturally with just more life experience, and as I grow up and I mature and I become even wiser and things change, I'm sure I'll step into a different chapter of
Yeah.
my life. But
Absolutely.
right now, this really facilitates me in achieving, my career goals and my personal goals. And yeah, again, I feel just sensational every single day.
Amazing. Experience the difference with Matt Glynn at Code Property Group. With a 20-year reputation of a clean business, Matt is your guy when it comes to all things real estate. Make sure you give him a call now on 0404 315 066. So speaking of chapters, you've recently completed, well, not recently, but within the last year, completed a,
Hmm.
a big IFBB season.
Yeah.
You want to talk us through that? Because you pretty much popped up at every show that Australia had. There's
Uh,
Tiarra again, but you competed in probably the most competitive division that is currently on show, which
yeah.
is obviously bikini. So talk us through that experience and just how you found it. Because one thing, having competed multiple times myself, is when you get to the back end of a season, you're very drained, you're very tired, you're very fatigued. But you didn't show any of that. You were obviously just enjoying yourself too much to even experience any bouts of fatigue, even though they may have been there. I don't know. I'd love to know
Hmm.
about that.
Yeah. Bottom line is this past season A of 2024, I had so much fun. I competed in 5 consecutive IFBB shows across the time span of 28 days. So 4 state shows and then the national titles. And it was just overall such a fun prep. I learned so much about the sport. I learned so much about myself. It was so special to get on stage again after undertaking a 3 year improvement season
Mhm.
and really being able to conduct the prep in the way that I had envisioned and I had manifested for so long. And it really did come down to my mindset. I set myself up for personal success because I did it in my mind first.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I was just able to remain in such a healthy headspace every single day and just feel so remarkably just grateful for the position that I was in and just the things that I said that I wanted to do, right? And it
Mm.
was the case of I was taking action and I was doing them and things were happening. And God, I feel like I really made the absolute most of it. And it was just such a joy to take people along for the journey as well. Obviously documenting things on Instagram, but even with my new podcasts that I started, like Bikini Bodybuilding and Dietetics, I had so much fun. Like every single week after my shows, it's funny, like I would sit down to the microphone and I'm like, yeah, like this will probably be about a 45-minute podcast. 2 hours later, they were kind of just like audio journals. And I would just have a good old chat with myself. And then I just, again, release it out to the universe. And I'm like, I have no clue if anyone's going to listen to this. But again, it's always such a joy when you're at the shows and people are like, I listened to
Yeah.
your podcast. It's so nice. But yeah, it was just so fun to document the journey, but also demonstrate to myself that gosh, this sport is for me. I really do have what it takes to thrive in every single phase of the sport, like not just the improvement season, not just recover, reverse well, or have a good starting position, but the prep, like take really good care of myself in the prep and really treat myself like an athlete because coming from a lot of disciplines and growing up in Canada and the US, like when you look at other athletes they compete. They compete, across seasons or even sometimes generally year round.
Yeah.
There's very few other sports out there where people will undertake, years worth of preparation and then they'll do like one competition and then tap out and be like,
Yeah.
yeah, look, I'm a little bit tired. Right? It's like, no, if you want to legitimately call yourself an athlete, athletes have stamina, athletes have endurance, athletes
Good point.
compete, like you undertake an actual season. You do your pre-games, then you go into semifinals, and then you
Yeah.
go into the finals, you compete at the grand final. You take those hard knocks, you take on feedback, you take on hard learning lessons, you aim to continuously progress and improve. So that's what something I really wanted to apply this past season and also change a bit of the status quo that we have here in Australia because it's not uncommon in other countries like the US or the UK for physique athletes to obviously go through their comp preps, but then they have a legitimate season. It's even separated into two phases there. It's like you're in prep, now
Yeah.
you're in the competition phase of
Yeah.
prep. And they'll do consecutive shows or they'll compete across this time span of about 2 months or so. And they have that endurance and that drive to keep going. Whereas here in Australia, the shows are a little bit limited, particularly if you just isolate yourself to a single federation. Like, let's say you only did IFBB, you only do FMG, you only do ICN. Some people, when they choose to do a prep, they try to take advantage of all of the different shows and dabble in them if they are eligible to do so based on, whether they're enhanced or not. But particularly with the IFBB, right? Like there are show options out there. You just have to be willing to take advantage of those opportunities and travel to them. So I was like, man, well, one, IFBB bikini, that's where I want to be long term. That is my vision. So I'm going all in on plan A. But I was also like, well, I've had 3 years of an improvement season. I want to have more stage experience. I want to get judges' feedback. I want to see, how can I improve show to show to show? What are the different things that I can learn? So I was like, man, this will be fun. How about I have a little tour? So I ran the idea past Joey last year when I came back from Japan from the Amateur Olympia there, where I was just so inspired going to that first like pro show.
Yep.
It was amazing. It really opened my eyes to, gosh, bodybuilding can take you around the world. Again, like if you choose to take advantage of opportunities, like you can travel the world with this sport. You can compete, you can make amazing memories, amazing friends, you can have amazing stories to tell. You can have so much fun and pursue the sport simultaneously. You just have to be willing to do that. So I was like, well, how about we start off domestically? So yeah, I took that on to actually plan myself a little tour. Start off in New South Wales. I went to Victoria, came back to Queensland, which is my home state. Went to South Australia, went back to Victoria for the nationals, and I had so much fun. I teed up with friends. I teed up with clients where I could actually stay in these different parts of Australia that I'd never even traveled to before.
Yep.
I documented the journey all along the way. I had little pockets where I would stay in Airbnbs by myself, like down in Melbourne. I was just living my best life. Like I had this Airbnb just a few blocks away from Doherty's gym in Brunswick.
Yep.
And I'd wake up early every morning. I'd walk to the gym in like 4-degree weather and I would strip down and I'd get in my bikini and heels. I swear my feet had like frostbite, but I would do posing in that little boxing room at Doherty's gym. And lo and behold, a few months later, and now they have like an insulated posing room.
Yeah.
But I was having the time of my life. And again, I demonstrated to myself that I have what it takes. I love this sport so much. And I know that if I just stick at it and I just keep putting in the work on a day-to-day basis with a really good attitude, because I freaking love it. I
Mm.
know that with time, like the objective results will come.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel so personally successful and I have the utmost highest level of self-belief, and I know it's just a matter of time for me. But yeah, this I definitely improved leaps and bounds. Just again, I feel as though as a trainee, if you've been at this for a number of years, you hit this breaking point where you kind of break into this whole new kind of chapter of your physique development, particularly in terms of like levels of conditioning, levels of muscle maturity.
Mm.
And this past season, I saw my physique in ways that I'd never seen it before, from a case of like vascularity and yeah, just the graininess to some of my muscles. I was like, whoa, okay, I didn't look anything even remotely like this 3+ years ago. So that really excited me to kind of get a sneak peek and to be like, wow, okay, I'm coming up on like almost a decade now of consistent training. This is really, really cool. But on the flip side, too, being inspired by so many of the amazing women that I got to stand alongside on stage with, right?
Mm.
And they were the better athletes on the day, and rightfully so. They placed higher than me. But one of my favorite questions to ask these girls is, how old are you? And a lot of these girls who are placing highly, they're in their early to mid to late 30s.
Yeah.
When I competed, I was still only 26. So it does just go to show that bodybuilding is a sport and it's rare compared to other sports where a lot of other athletes, they usually hit their prime, depends on the sport, but, mid 20s, late
Yeah.
20s, early 30s. Very few sports out there are people like hitting their prime in their like early 40s. Like,
Yeah.
no way. So that's what inspires me about bodybuilding. I'm like, I love this. I'm just getting started. Like, the future is bright. The future is very exciting. So yeah, I had the best season ever. I experienced just so much joy, and I had just like, oh God, I had wind in my sails. I had so much support behind me, and I think because I was having such a good time as well, that legitimately just blunted any sort of negative effect that I would experience anyway. Like I don't know, a little bit of hunger or a little bit of fatigue, like. Because I was just so happy and driven, I almost
Yep.
feel like those sort of things were blunted. And I think the other things I think were just inevitable is when I get exceptionally lean, no matter how good my sleep hygiene protocols are, I always suffer from pretty gnarly insomnia. So that was pretty freaking rough. There were definitely times, even recovering out of the prep, where like I felt like a little bit of a maniac, because I was severely, severely underslept. Starting my days at 1:30 in the morning, sort of thing. Like it was quite crazy. And Joey can actually probably speak to that. We'd have consults, and I'm like, I don't feel like I'm actually here right now. Yeah, a little bit loco, but fortunately don't feel like that anymore.
That's
But that, and also just sometimes, digestion can take a little bit of a hit as well, particularly in peak weeks when you're doing like undulating high days, low days, particularly as like a small bikini athlete, right? Like, and when you undertake a prep, one of the reasons your waistline actually gets so small too is because your organs actually atrophy. Actually, you lose a little bit of smooth muscle around your intestines because one, you're not eating as much food. So your intestines don't have to work as hard to obviously digest that food. But it is actually just a natural way for your body to actually lose some tissue as well. But doing those undulating days where, particularly with my prep, because I hit the conditioning mark for sure by my first show, and my feedback was to fill out, come in, a little bit fuller, which obviously incorporated more carbs, more food. But doing those sort of days where like eating significantly more and then depleting a little bit, like there were just days where like my digestion was just like, which we all know is just can be pretty uncomfortable.
Sure.
But other than that, God, I feel as though I made myself so many promises prior to the prep in terms of how I wanted to execute it and how I wanted to handle myself. And I just stuck to those promises. And again, I wanted to demonstrate to my clients who I was speaking to every single day and other people in this industry too, that like, God, if you fall victim to that notion that you just go into a prep and you just submit to these ideas and beliefs that, oh, it's going to be so tough and you're going to struggle, you're going to starve, you're going to be exhausted, it's going to be painful, it's going to be grueling, it's going to be the hardest thing you ever do in your life. If you enter into a prep with those beliefs, then 100% it's going to pan out like that.
Yeah.
But really, like, if you tell yourself a different narrative, then perhaps you're going to have a different experience.
I like that. That's a great quote. Yeah, very true. Very true. Are you looking to shed a few kilos, change your composition, improve your relationship with food, increase your strength, or simply just have a better accountability level? Then maybe coaching is for you. I now offer online coaching in a number of capacities, from week to week, fortnightly, monthly, and of course nutrition only coaching. So if you are interested or want to know more, simply jump on paulsbodyengineering.com or simply send me a DM. Wow. So what's next on the agenda then? Have you already got a timeline for your next tilt, or are you sort of just playing it by
Yes,
yourself at
indeed.
the
I,
moment?
I definitely have a plan. So this past season, yeah, again, definitely demonstrate to myself that I have what it takes to compete weekend after weekend or have a legitimate season, do a lot of consecutive shows, and not fade away. So next year and for the years coming, I want to be a seasoned competitor. I want to compete every single year.
Yeah,
I
wow.
definitely think that from a mental health standpoint and also a physique standpoint, a resilience standpoint, I treat myself like an athlete. So I know that I have what it takes to do it sustainably.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to start competing every single year. So next year, Tony Doherty has mentioned that they might be bringing some natural IFBB shows to Australia, and
Yep.
they'll be running those out throughout the mid-year, which is now with IFBB, they're saying they have a season A, a season B, and a season C. So he's proposed having these natural shows mid-year.
Yep.
And as a natural athlete myself, I would love to be a part of that first movement with the IFBB here in Australia. And if that goes ahead, I'm really hopeful that they'll have more than just one show. Like this past season B, they only had one in Victoria. It would be so cool to be able to do another little domestic tour again if they do it in like the primary states. So, for example, Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria, and then they have nationals.
Yep.
That would be really neat. Otherwise, I'll compete in a different season and more likely season A rather than season B. But again, I had a consultation with Joey this past week and I was just like 100%, as Joey always is, but I told him still straight up, I'm like, you need to tell me if I've improved significantly enough or not in order to be even more competitive this next coming season prior to that commencing a prep potentially for season A, which is still over 7 months away. And I'm so happy with how this current improvement season is going. I'm now 4 months post show, and I feel remarkable in my body, in my mind. I love my training. Just everything is just clicked for me. And again, I feel as though my physique results, they are a byproduct of the way that I'm treating myself right now.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
I'm really happy with how my body composition is looking in terms of muscular development, but also maintaining a relatively lower level of body fat as well. So next year, if we were to do season A, it won't be nearly long of a prep. My whole goal is to definitely put on some stage weight for this next season. A kilogram or two would be awesome because I got on stage in like the high 56 kilos And for reference, I'm like over 176 centimeters tall. And a lot of the girls who compete who are like my height, who are highly muscular, they compete in the high 50s or low 60s. So I've got a lot of room, particularly because my feedback was that I hit the conditioning mark to actually put on more legitimate tissue weight.
Mm,
So actually growing into this next show, essentially, and then my timeline for actually dieting down into the show shouldn't have to take, a number of months. It maybe like only, more in the territory of 10 to 12 weeks sort of thing. If
perfect.
I'm staying within a striking distance of my stage weight, which,
Yep.
again, for my own body type, I know that is realistic and it's very comfortable and I feel very happy doing that. So yeah, potentially season A or the season B mid-year shows. But I would also love for 2025 to be the year where I don't just do shows domestically, but I want to travel more.
Yeah.
I want to see, what can the world of bodybuilding offer me? I am an American citizen, so I could easily go over to the US. I don't need a visa. I could compete in any NPC shows over there. Obviously, I can do like the Natural Olympia over there if I wanted to at the end of the year, but there's a lot of other amateur Olympias held, especially in the middle of the year, places
Yep.
like Japan and Portugal and Spain. And gosh, I want to do it and I will do it. And I know as well with my line of work too. I've even been able to demonstrate to myself this year. I worked all throughout my prep. um, and I also even I took 5 weeks to go visit my family over in the USA in June, and I still worked out throughout that whole time. So I can be a little bit of a digital nomad. Yeah, I'm so excited for everything to come in the future. I really feel like I'm just stepping into this whole new chapter of my life, this whole new version of the woman that I'm destined to be. And I just feel like there's amazing things on the horizon and legit just like only good things to look forward to.
Amazing. I love that. That's so cool that you've got that vision already, but you know who you are as well, and you know what you want to pursue, and you
Yeah.
know the goals. And look, I don't obviously know you that well, but based on the passion you deliver in these videos, it's pretty clear that you're going to achieve it. I would be a very I wouldn't gamble on the fact that you wouldn't put it that way. So yeah, it's very much
But
so.
also, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, good point.
I live a just remarkable life where I'm happy every single day, but maybe it didn't translate into like the highest accolade in a sport that is insanely subjective and genetically determined. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad trade-off.
No, it's not. Not at all. Not at all. Um, I was speaking to you off before we hit record about my middle daughter wanted to potentially pursue a career in dietetics or
Yeah.
nutrition, and she's expressed that interest and has gone to career expos and all that sort of stuff. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity just to chat briefly about that in terms of some advice you would give, given that you're
Mm.
obviously, a leader in your field. Most people know you as that bodybuilding dietitian. What would be some advice you would give to the next generation coming through? They might be year 11 or 12, or maybe they've just started university and are a little bit sure in terms of the career pathways. Because I
Mhm.
guess dietitian or nutritionist, as a general sense, it can open up a lot of doors, but a lot of people sort of, I guess, put the stigma attached to it to say you can only work in a hospital or you can only work in an aged care facility. But
Yeah.
there's, as you've experienced and as you've demonstrated, there's a whole world out there of opportunity, right?
Well, you have to be a bit of a carpenter and perhaps build your own door. At least if you really want to branch out into an area that you are insanely passionate about. And a bodybuilding dietitian, when Jack and I, we created it, we
Yeah.
made it up. We're like, that wasn't a thing. And it wasn't
No, it
an
wasn't.
Instagram handle either. We jumped right on that when we had the idea in like some uni lecture. We're like, make it now.
Copyright.
And there you go, like almost 6 years later, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but it is the case of if you do find that you are heavily passionate about a certain area and you are just instilled with a lot of belief in yourself, of course, you have to be willing to, put in immense amount of work and a hell of a lot of effort. But it kind of goes without saying, like, is it really work if you genuinely love what you do? And also you're doing it
Absolutely.
with the right intentions as well. I know that when we first started, we didn't even have a business or anything of that nature. We actually started with our podcast. We started with the podcast in 2018 because we recognized that hey, we're very passionate bodybuilders ourselves. Jack and I both just had our first season under our belt. We just finished our first year of dietetics. We were already nutrition exercise scientists, but we really recognized that there was a major gap in the industry. You
Yeah,
know,
well,
again, this was back in 2018, and we
mm.
are fortunate that we jumped into the podcast game. I guess at least here in Australia, perhaps you could call TBD a few of the OGs in the space.
Yeah,
Uh, because now in 2024, obviously there's a lot of podcasts booming because so many people recognize that this is a great way to get out there, you know,
yeah,
and build an audience and also just like build a community and just help other people, educate other people. But that's what we started doing. That was our intention. We were just like, we genuinely just want to set things straight. We want to help people. We want to, try to just dismiss a lot of these myths floating around the industry when it comes to nutrition, particularly in the bodybuilding space, and actually put some evidence base behind it. Actually explain why you don't want to be dehydrating before a show, or perhaps why carbohydrates actually are really good for you. You don't
yeah.
need to be on a ketogenic or a carnivorous diet, things of that nature. And people really appreciated that. And I think that's one of the best things that you can do is like, don't go into it necessarily, money hungry or like client focused or like, what can I get out of this?
Mm.
It's more so the case of like, how can I help other people? You know, how can I have a point of difference and how can I make a difference, a positive difference, and have a positive influence on the industry, whatever industry that is that you choose to branch into. You know, you could be a dietitian for actors, or you could be a dietitian for musicians, right? And
Yeah.
really like get super nitty gritty on, okay, what are these people's schedules and what do their lives look like, and how do we make sure that they're still well nourished and they're thriving and they've got clear skin so that the makeup artist doesn't have to, just brush that up for a whole hour, or make sure that this musician is so well nourished that they don't feel like they need to be resorting to any sort of drugs or alcohol to keep them going, or they have that stamina, that endurance, that health to do concerts night after night after
Yeah,
night,
it's a good point.
not lose their voice. Like, well, again, those are just examples, but there's so many domains out there because, again, nutrition and dietetics has the potential to apply to every single person on this planet
Yep,
because everyone needs to eat. And I'd hope that everyone's life goal is to have their heart beating on the planet for as long as possible. And the food
absolutely.
that you eat, it's going to influence how long, you live your life for and your quality of life too. So find like the area that you're really passionate about, find out how can you have a point of difference, how can you have a positive influence, do it with the right intentions. And you just need to start and you need to be consistent. And also surround yourself with other people, right, who are great mentors, right, and learn from other people too. Because yeah, I truly believe that, dietetics, it doesn't just have to be clinically based, or you don't just have to work in an aged care facility. Like what I learned through my nutrition dietetics degree is exactly where I didn't want to work. And perhaps that's what inspired me so much to be like, I am going to be a bodybuilding dietitian because I do not want to work in a hospital.
Yeah, fair enough.
So perhaps, yeah, I guess that's some of my advice, but also just enjoy it too. Like, especially like the bachelor degree, I loved that so much. That's where I probably have 90% of my nutrition and exercise knowledge from undertaking that bachelor degree. You learn so many just fascinating things about nutrition science, advanced exercise physiology, biomechanics, anatomy. Like, man, you can nerd out on the human body. It is so cool.
Oh, I love that. That's so good. Oh dear. Well, thank you. I will make sure that Mia, my middle daughter, listens, and
Mm.
I'm sure, yeah, she'll get a lot out of that. Yeah, it's a lot of pressure on kids these days as they get to the back end of their schooling career, and what's next. But it's good to have ambition in terms of maybe targeting a
And
certain career.
don't expect yourself to know either.
Mm,
Like I certainly didn't enter into university from day one. I didn't even know what bodybuilding was.
yeah,
But it's more so like recognize at least what you're interested in, keep your mind open, and like really as you start to learn new things, like don't be closed-minded to anything,
yeah,
but do
very
recognize that,
close.
hey, like there's options.
Absolutely, there is. Yeah,
Mm.
100% there is. And you've got to follow your passion too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And
Yeah.
it's okay and it's normal to be passionate about different things as well and change your mind.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that at
Mm.
all. Well, I'll start to wind up, Tiara, because I know you've got probably plenty of things you need to do. But in the meantime, I always finish podcast guests with a couple of questions.
Hmm.
The first one I've asked everyone since day one. The second one's relatively new. And the first one obviously is, who would you invite to dinner? So this sort of gives us an insight as to, who would you like to sit down with, have a meal with, and have a conversation with? And this can be anybody. It could even be fictional if you wanted it to, because there might be someone that inspires you that's not around or not real. I'm not too sure.
Uh,
I've had some
Pat
wild answers, trust me.
Patrick Star and SpongeBob SquarePants to to eat a burger with them in Bikini Bottom. And
In a
Mr.
pineapple
Krabs
under
is
the
there.
sea.
No, if I was to sit down to dinner with anyone who's a real life person and they are
Yep.
still indeed alive, I would love to have a dinner and have some really in-depth conversations with Phil Heath.
Oh,
I
wow. Okay. Yep.
I really look up to Phil Heath
Eight-time
as
Olympia.
a
Yeah.
person, as an athlete. I think that he is so well spoken, and I think that he is just a huge inspiration. I think that he's a great ambassador for the sport, and I really just admire his intelligence and just overall who he is. And I think that he would be a really interesting person to discuss different things with about, what he's seen. He's so obviously well traveled. Of course, goes without saying.
Yeah.
Yes, very successful. I believe like a seven-time Mr. Olympian. So, yeah, that would be just an absolute honor to be able to have a conversation with Phil Heath and to pick his brain.
Wow.
So that would be pretty neat. Like I've really just I've listened to probably every single podcast that he's ever recorded. I
Hmm.
loved his documentary Breaking Olympia.
Yep.
And yeah, he was definitely done wrong by when they did those Generation Iron
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
documentaries. I didn't buy it though. I was like, I
Nah,
know this is a good guy.
it's been
Uh,
edited, yeah.
so yeah, Phil Heath. I'd love to pick his brain and I'd love to have a really, really good chat.
Are you paying for the dinner? Because I reckon he'd eat a fair bit.
Sure, or I'll take the guy fishing.
You're gonna need a lot of fish. Oh
We'll
dear.
go when the tide's right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, and then finally, what's your fight song? What would be a song? So let's assume you're not a bodybuilder, you're a professional fighter in some description, whether it be boxing, Muay Thai, whatever. What's that song that you're going to walk out to? And you probably got one anyway that you listen to when you're doing like a heavy lift. What's that one song that just gives you that boost?
Gosh, well, God forbid I'm ever in a fight. But a song that I love no matter what my mood is called Ride Like the Wind by Christopher Cross.
Okay.
I love that song. Like, it is the night, my body's weak. I'm on the run, no time to sleep. I
Oh,
love
good.
I love that song. And I used to listen to it all the time when I was out for long runs, or heck, I still listen to it in the gym now when I'm doing a 20 rep set of hip thrusts. Uh, but Ride Like the Wind by Christopher Cross, that's a fantastic song. And sure, it's not like we will rock you.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think that it's me. So if
Hey,
I was
look,
to
if
ever get into a fight, that would probably G me up to be able to throw some punches and then apologize because of, Canadian and shiz.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, amazing. Oh, I'm gonna have to write that one down and have a listen because I haven't heard that song, so I'll put it on my playlist and have a listen.
You probably have heard it. It's definitely a classic.
Yeah.
Once you listen, you're like, oh yeah, I've heard this tune before.
Okay.
And if
All
not, then I'm very excited for it to hit your ears.
right. Well, I'll put it on tomorrow and we'll have a jam and see what it does for me. See if it inspires me to do something great in the gym.
Enjoy. Yeah,
Yeah.
and hope but just hopefully it doesn't inspire you to go out and get in a fight.
No, 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 no. No, not my style. All right, well, Tiara, I'll wind up there and I'll let you go. But thank you very much for your time and thank you for your insight too, and obviously sharing your story, being transparent, being honest, being genuine within that. It's great to see someone, as I said, trailblazing within this space
Mm,
because obviously, go back 10 years, it was very male dominated, whereas
yeah.
now it's probably even split, if not probably more in favor of females, which is fantastic to see. And hopefully it continues to head in that direction. And, the world of bodybuilding is obviously growing at a rapid rate in terms of the sport, in terms of coaching, in terms of participation. So it's good to see people at the forefront, leading by example, but also, I guess, teaching the right way. The old methods of, as you mentioned, cutting water and ridiculous amounts of salt and, all these sorts of things are hopefully something that we don't have to hear or,
Mm.
experience again. And obviously you're one of those trailblazers sort of leading from the front. So it's really great to chat to you, and it's been well overdue. And we'll probably obviously touch base. Well, I'm going to assume you're going to be backstage next weekend, so I'll probably see you there.
Absolutely. It's
Mm.
definitely show season. So yeah, traveling
Yeah.
every single weekend to various different shows, IFBB, ICN. Yeah, it's one heck of a time, but I really appreciate that, Paul. Thank you so
No, no
much.
problem.
And
No
it's
problem.
been a real honor to come onto this podcast as well. Like I mentioned, I've listened to a lot of your episodes over the years. So yeah, this has been just an awesome opportunity. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone so much for listening if you made it to this point too. But yeah, I always love, hopping behind a mic and just having a good old chat. It's a heck of a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And if people want to follow you personally along, give you a handle, a shout out, and your podcast too, for that matter.
Yeah, so you can get in touch with me just through Instagram if you'd like. My name is Tiarra. It's spelled Tyarra Nelson, Nelson. So Tiarra Nelson over on Instagram. Also have the business Instagram as well called the Bodybuilding Dietitians. And if you'd like to get in touch regarding coaching, you can just Google the Bodybuilding Dietitians, and our website should come up as well. I've got two podcasts, the OG podcast, which is called The Bodybuilding Dietitians. We have 300 episodes over on there. So knock yourself out, go through the archives. Or I now have a new podcast called Bikini Bodybuilding and Dietetics. And that is a podcast channel that I've recently started this year. So that's where I was documenting my entire comp prep journey throughout season A. And now I'm actually branching into the space of interviewing a lot of different athletes around the country and other professionals in the industry too, coaches, researchers, anyone who just is just head over heels in love with bodybuilding. I want to talk to them because I truly believe that everyone, they have their golden nuggets. So I'm starting to branch into that space to interview a lot of other people and give a lot of people, a platform to share their journeys, to share their insights. So yeah, you can head over and listen to some of those episodes as well on bikini bodybuilding and dietetics. But that's pretty much me.
Perfect. Amazing. No, that's great. That's fantastic. So thank you once again. It's been awesome. I'll obviously see you in person. Oh, and just FYI, I heard, I don't know whether I saw it or I heard it, but I understand you might be emceeing a certain event coming up too. Is that right?
Hey, that is right. I will I will be behind a portable mic
There you
uh
go.
up on stage on the 5th of October for the WNBF show here in Australia. I am so excited and so honored to have that opportunity. That is going to be so much fun. So, yes, Tiara Nelson is going to be
In
emceeing
live.
the WNBF show this season. So be there or be square. But no, I'm really really looking forward to that. That'll just be such a yeah, just such an awesome experience. And hopefully, I don't make too many like ridiculous cheesy jokes that don't make any sense to anyone but me, and I just laugh at them myself. But
That's
if
all
I
part of the
do,
entertainment.
I'm gonna own it. But yeah, that is I'm very very excited for that. So yeah, 5th of October,
Cool.
WNBF. Yeah, I'll be there technically running the show.
Yeah, you will. Absolutely. You'll be calling everybody out, and yeah. So it's all on you.
Hey, a pressure's on.
There you go. Pressure's a privilege, right?
It is.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Tiara. I really appreciate it. And we'll obviously touch base again very soon. Okay, well, I'd like to thank Tiara for her time, first and foremost, and just her insight into her life, into her bodybuilding journey, into her career. I know I specifically asked about the career side of things because one of my daughters is very much interested in pursuing dietetics as a career path, and it's great to speak to someone who has lived and breathed it, but also walked that path and opened up many doors in the process. So thank you, Tiara. If you'd like to follow Tiara's journey, please follow her on Instagram at her handle, Tiarra Nelson. Also, her business is the Bodybuilding Dietitians. You can find that as well. If you're interested in any of my coaching services, of course, jump on paulsbodyengineering.com or DM me through Instagram. And if you are very much in favor of this podcast episode, if you enjoyed it, please screenshot and share it. Tag myself, tag Tyarra. The more people that listen to these sort of things, the more education and knowledge is out there, and that's exactly why we do what we do. And as I say to every client, every single day, to everybody listening, have a great day.